Welcome back to the Warrior's Mind. Today we have another interview. I'll be interviewing my buddy Gabe. You guys, if you watch the Everyday Carry Firefighter video, then you've seen him already a little bit. But we're going to do our scripture reading, and then we'll let Gabe take it away. So let's get into it. Today's scripture reading comes from Luke 9, verse 23. Then he said to the crowd, "If any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross daily, and follow me." All right, so we got Gabe here. Gabe is my buddy. He's a firefighter. He's been a firefighter / EMT for the last 2 years now. Went to the firefighter academy or school. We'll talk more about that, or I guess Gabe will talk more about that. I have not done it personally. Gabe grew up in a Christian household with a good mother and father and a younger sister. Gabe comes from a family of veterans, and like I said, he grew up in a Christian household, so we'll be talking about faith, masculinity, and Gabe's career as a firefighter today. I'm going to let Gabe kind of take it away here and talk about his career. I got some questions written out, so I don't forget to ask things I think are going to be valuable to you guys. And then also, I am home right now for spring break, so our cat Zora decided she wanted to be part of the interview. So if you see animals come in and out, hopefully that's to your guys' enjoyment and not distraction. But yeah, so we'll let Gabe take it away. All right, so we've already established you're a firefighter. Why did you become a firefighter? Obviously, a lot of people go to college, but you chose a different path. So
The reason I became a firefighter was, one, I wanted to serve, and for the longest time I thought I was going to follow my dad's footsteps and a lot of people in my family's footsteps of joining the military. And I really was going to go and do that, but because of when I graduated, which was the year of COVID 2020, there was a lot of stuff going on with the military and a lot of things that were uncertain, and I really didn't want to put myself in that situation. I was not comfortable with where the military was going and just didn't like how it was kind of a huge unknown for the military at that time, especially, it seemed like.
yeah.
But I still wanted to serve, so I started looking at firefighting and police officers, and I came to realize, one, police officers have a lot more paperwork, and that's never been something I've been a fan of. Two, obviously, with how everything was in 2020 and even now, how much hatred there seems like for the police department and everything like that. Didn't really deter me, but it was still kind of an unknown issue.
Right.
If there were going to be a lot more, like, pretty much just a lot less positions to be able to be hired in, which I think is actually the opposite now. I think there's a lot less people wanting to become police officers, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for police officers. Even though they are second responders, but no. So I had huge interest in the fire service because, one, you get to help people on a day-to-day basis. The job is also has every day you have some things that stay the same, but every call and everything else for that day that you're going to run on is very different. Mm-hmm. So one day you might end up having 3 structure fires. Next day you might have 5 people that are just having trouble breathing. And whatever it is, you got to go and respond, but each call is absolutely different because you're dealing with different people a lot of times. There are some people that are the same, but that's with any profession like this. The other thing that really got me interested in the fire service was, one, you might call me crazy or weird or anything, but I always thought fire is very cool and fascinating. Mm-hmm. And the idea of going into a burning building to try and save someone, especially, but also just to try and save their property or the house they built, or a lot of times people can't just up and move, or insurance helps with it, but it's a lot of times very difficult for families if they do lose an entire house or anything like that. So just pretty much to try and help be there for someone's worst day and just make it a little bit better. Um, and I don't know, maybe it's just because my faith and stuff, but I've always wanted to serve and always thought that if I ever were to lose my life sooner than I'd rather like to, I would hope that it would be in the process of trying to help another human being rather than um, not, I guess.
Right.
Um, they and the brotherhood that you get from firefighting is one of its own. It's a second family because I mean you're there for 24 hours a day with these people, and you also have to trust them with your life. They trust you with your or theirs.
Right.
Um, and it's very much still a team aspect. I loved playing sports when I was growing up, so it still has that team vibe, but it's also much more than a team. It's a family.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's kind of what got me into it. Was I wanted to serve, loved helping people, and I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah.
And intriguing.
No, it's a noble thing. Servant leadership is what men should be striving to do in their everyday life, no matter what their career is. So it's a noble thing to choose firefighting or whatever you would have ended up with if you didn't, but to choose firefighting for. Another thing, I've talked about this in my last interview. I want to know more about what the firefighter life is. You mentioned it just briefly there for a second, the 24-hour shifts, which is not super common for a lot of careers that people have. So if you want to explain and get in more in detail of what your life looks like on duty. So
Absolutely. So on our average day, so we work around 10 days, 9 to 10 days a month.
mm-hmm.
They are 24-hour shifts, and that equates to a 54-hour work week. So it is longer than your typical 40-hour work week, but at the same time, I feel as though you get more time to do things you enjoy and spend time with family, because you're only working 9 to 10 days instead of 20 days a month.
Yeah.
The downfall to it is you do have to work on holidays where other people don't have to work. Um, so like Christmas, we had to work this past Christmas. That can be tough, but right now, for me, with how old I am and I don't have my own family yet,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't too bad. But obviously, as I get older, start having a family, there are going to be times that do suck to be there a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it helps knowing that you're there for a reason. You're there to help others out, and your loved ones and family will understand that, and then they can also still stop by the station and see you. There are going to be adjustments, but like I said, I like the idea of when I do have my own family that the days I have off, I have a whole day off. I can
Right.
spend that whole day with them doing whatever they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also, it gives me the opportunity to have hobbies or pick up a second job I'm interested in just because I'm only working 9 to 10 days a month. Like I said, it is 24 hours, and there are times where you're probably not going to sleep for those 24 hours. There's been shifts where we've gotten maybe 20 minutes of sleep just because we've been so busy, but I wouldn't change it for anything. I couldn't imagine working a 40-hour work week after this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, and then the everyday life. So, how our day starts is as a firefighter, we come in, and if you're driving the truck that day, you do a rig check or a truck check. And all that entails is we come in, we make sure all equipment on the truck is there, one, that it works and that it's charged, and then make sure that we have fuel, make sure the truck's running good, make sure there's no immediate problems that are going to prevent us from going out and doing the job we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
If you're riding back seat on the engine, so you're the guy not driving and you're not the officer in the truck, then your day is going to start by going to the kitchen and finding out what we need from the store, and also prepping and making a meal plan for lunch and dinner. Or on Sundays and holidays, it's breakfast and dinner. So that person would then leave for the store, buy all the groceries that we need, and then he comes back, and then we start on the daily chores for that day. So for that day, after you finish your truck check or your grocery shopping, what you're going to do is like Tuesdays for us are cleaning the back garage. So after everyone gets done with their individual daily tasks that they're in charge of, then we all come back together to accomplish that task. Once that is done, around 10 o'clock, we always have trainings on the weekdays.
Mm-hmm.
So Monday through Friday, if you're working one of those days, we have department trainings, whether it be medical side of things or the fire side of things. We will be doing trainings up until lunch, which is at 12. And then after lunch, we continue on with those trainings until 4. Once 4 o'clock hits, we have our time to go work out, which we have a gym upstairs, which is very nice. So we can go up and do a group workout or individual workouts. We also have a tower at our station, which we use for training, and or we can also use it for working out.
Mm-hmm.
After that, around 5 o'clock, the cook or the backseat driver or the backseat rider, backseat firefighter, will then start prepping for dinner. So he starts getting everything around, and if he needs help, obviously the other guys will come in and help him out.
Mm-hmm.
And then we eat dinner, and then the rest of the day, so around after 7 o'clock, we pick up, we clean dinner, we wash all the chief's vehicles and any vehicle that left the station. One thing I did forget is also, as the driver, after your rig check, you're in charge of washing your truck. We have to wash our truck every day in the morning.
Okay.
Keep things clean, keep things functioning, just helps out.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so, like I said, after dinner though, after the cleaning and after the washing of the chief's vehicles or any vehicle that left the station, we then have our own downtime. So around probably 7:30 is when we finish that. And from there, we can work on our individual projects, because we each have an individual project that we're in charge of. Like for me, I'm in charge of all the fire extinguishers at the station. So for me, I have to make sure they all are working, aren't broken, all within the date that they're serviced, and make sure each truck has them.
Mm-hmm.
So after dinner, I obviously can go ahead and spend time doing that if I feel the need to, or we can just relax. We can sit up in the TV room, watch some TV, play cards, or anything like that you hear of the typical firefighter lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
For us, it really doesn't usually happen until after dinner, and when we get our free time. And there's also a lot of pranks pulled. Which is fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then Saturdays are a little different. It's not during the weekday, so our morning routine stays the same. But after we finish our truck checks and whatever the daily assignment or chore is, we will usually do a little training, and then Saturdays are more so our project days. So like that's really when I'll go over each of the fire extinguishers and make sure everything's in order and in check. Then Sundays, those are the one days that we do have that they give us, that we just do our normal daily chores, cleaning bathrooms, cleaning hallways,
Mm-hmm.
checking the trucks, grocery shopping, making food. But other than that, those are our days just to kind of relax for the week. But that's our typical order of our day. And obviously, calls are thrown in there sporadically because you can never predict when you're going to get a call. But yeah, so that's the typical everyday life.
Yeah, that's well, some of that is what you think about with firefighter, obviously, like the calls or the truck maintenance stuff. But like
At least for me, I'm not a firefighter. I guess I didn't really think about having to do groceries or things like that. So that's good to hear. And I know obviously somebody who might be thinking of that is
Yeah, and actually, the funny thing that I didn't realize with going in the fire service also is we kind of have to be a jack of all trades. Because we also keep up the lawn at the station. We fix, I'd say, probably about 80% of the stuff that breaks. So you have to be somewhat mechanically inclined and or be able to learn
right.
how to do it. You also have to be very good at problem solving and very capable of remaining calm in stressful situations where other people are panicking because you are there. Well, they called you there to pretty much be that calm person to get the situation and make it better.
Right.
So I've learned a lot of stuff that I otherwise probably wouldn't have or would have had to go out of my way. That's been very helpful and useful also in just everyday life.
Yeah. No, that's cool. It makes you a more well-rounded person. But what advice, I guess, would you have for someone who is looking to become a firefighter, and wants to possibly make that their career? What advice would you give to them if they're just looking into it or starting that out? So,
the advice I'd have for them is to honestly really take a good mental look at yourself and how you can have handled any stressful situations in your life, as well as mental, I'm going to say mental toughness.
Yeah.
Because there are going to be things that you see that are going to weigh on you and be constantly in your memory that a lot of people don't have to deal with.
Right.
Or a lot of just, you're going to see a lot of bad stuff that happens to people that everyday people don't see. So you just have to make sure that it's not going to affect you negatively mentally. Or, I mean, over time, everything has its toll, right?
Yeah.
You just want to make sure that you can handle it, I guess. And sometimes you don't know that until you get on the job. And if that's the case, though, you just need to make sure that you have a resource to go and talk to, or just a resource to help keep you in the right state of mind.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you start getting in the wrong state of mind, not only does it affect your personal life, but it'll also affect your work, which then can affect the people you're trying to help. So that would be the biggest piece of advice. The other piece of advice would be make sure you're staying physically fit and healthy, because it is a very demanding job when it comes to on your body. You're going to be pushing yourself to many physical limits, and the waking up in the night, obviously you're not getting as much sleep as you probably should a lot of days that you work, so that has its toll on your body, as well as when the tones go off at night and you're sleeping and it wakes you up, your heart rate goes from a resting heart rate, whatever your normal resting heart rate is, and it'll spike all the way up to crazy numbers, like into the 200s if it's a fire call or something like that. Even medicals, it'll jump up real quick, and your heart's really not designed to be jumping like that in a split second.
Right.
So it obviously has its physical wears and tears on your body. It also has as I already discussed, the mental wears, just from some stuff that you're going to encounter.
Right.
So just making sure that you have good physical health, and once again, with your physical health and stuff, being a firefighter, you are more inclined to get cancer. It's just the nature of the job. So just making sure you're really doing everything that you possibly can to stay on top of it and help prevent.
Right.
But so pretty much the two biggest pieces of advice is just make sure you're staying healthy and in good shape. And the second piece of advice is just make sure you know where your mental limit is
Mm-hmm.
or if you can handle those type of stressful and environments
Yeah.
and things that you're going to see.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. It's good.
Um, Other than that, though, I mean, I think it's the greatest job in the world. You're going to have bonds that will never break. The guys I work with have become a second family.
Mm-hmm.
I trust them with my life, obviously, but I also trust them with my family members' life. And there's some friendships that are never going to go away.
Right.
One more thing with the everyday life that I just remembered, sorry,
No, you're good.
bouncing around a little bit,
That's all right.
Is they'll also become a lot of the people you hang out with outside of work, just because you do have that different schedule than other people.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times when I'm off on a Monday, other people, my other friends that aren't in the same service I am,
Mm-hmm.
are working. So
Right.
you rely on them also a lot in your personal life to help you out and just to be there. But
Right.
like I said, those friendships and bonds are pretty amazing.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That's cool. Like you said, it's kind of like sports. You get that brotherhood, but a little bit more probably because you're living with these people and spending a lot more time with them. So, no, that's good. We'll move on to the next question. So, another question I had for you. The advice for firefighters is great. Hopefully, it gives somebody better insight on, what they're going to be getting themselves into. But I kind of just wanted to hear if you had any firefighter stories that you wanted to share, whether it's serious or not serious. What have you experienced that you think you can share for other people? I'm curious. I know that other people are too. So.
Absolutely. So I had quite a few. I guess I'll start off with one. This is more of a serious one. It was my very first day. Technically, my shift didn't even start yet. Got to work, was putting on my uniform, and we got toned out for a structure fire in the city. Immediately ran down. Didn't even have my job shirt on yet. Threw on the bunker pants. Threw on everything. Like I said, this is my first day on the job, so it was gonna be my first structure fire. I was packing up in the back seat of our tower, which is the ladder truck.
Mm-hmm.
And our captain, who was going to be the incident commander on the scene, he looks back at me and tells me I'm going in with the two firefighters that were also in that truck with me. We're going to be the first ones into the fire. I was all pumped up. I was all excited. I want to go actually get to fight real fire. That's what I was training to do, and I was going to get to do it. So we pulled up on the scene of a house fire. The A and B side had flames coming out. So I had flames coming out of the window and the door, and a lot of heavy black smoke coming out. Well, I go to get out of my seat with the other guys, and my air pack, they had just changed the air pack bottle size from 2216 bottles to 4500, and there's a little bit difference of size. And they hadn't adjusted this one seat yet because they were getting to it that day. Well, I go to, you can't try and jolt yourself out, which I didn't know yet, because it is also a prevention in case we ever get in an accident in any of the vehicles. That's like an extra seatbelt. It's supposed to like stop you. Well, I had all the adrenaline flowing that I was like trying to jolt myself out, and I couldn't get it. And two other guys hopped out, and one actually looked at me and shook his head and walked past me and went to the fire. By the time I got up to the scene, they had already made entry, and all I was thinking was, great. Messed up already on my first day on the job. I messed up on, the number one thing that we trained for and are called for.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, dang it. And I was like, God, why? Why do you have to have this happen to me this day? Like, come on. I was going to go in, get to fight some fire. Well, it turns out it ended up being a blessing. The two guys that were supposed to go in with, well, they went inside, and the room ended up flashing over on them. what a flashover is where the smoke in the room and all the contents in that room catch on fire. The reason being was that fire was just missing some oxygen in that room. Once it got that oxygen from the door opening, it took off. Actually, it wasn't that door. It was a neighbor actually came by and opened the back door. And with him doing so, he was trying to see if anyone was there. Which I understand the neighbor was just trying to help. But if ever you see a fire going on and the fire department is there, do not start opening up doors or windows because it'll create new flow paths for the fire because fires can be wind driven very easily. But anyways, a flashover occurred. The room caught on fire. The second guy in ended up getting 20% of his upper body burned. And his CBA mask was 5 seconds away from failure, meaning it was 5 seconds away from failing, right? So the plastic is only able to hold or keep out so much heat before melting. So it was about to completely melt to where he would have no clean air to breathe in, and he would just be breathing in all that smoke.
Right.
And then all that hot smoke in his lungs, all those bad fumes, and probably burning his lungs up pretty good too. And the first guy in, he got a 2nd-degree burn on his arm. He was much more fortunate, but that being said, with me being the third guy behind that second guy, there was a very good chance I probably wouldn't have made it. And had I would have made it, I would have probably had very significant burn damage to me on my very first day. So when I realized that, though, it really made me reflect, and I was like, well, thank you, God. People always say he works in mysterious ways, and we don't always know his plans, but just trust in him. And that was also another eye-opener realization of how much just to trust in him. Because, like I said before, I was questioning him, kind of. Like, I was like, come on, really? Like, why? Then he ended up having he sees the past, present, and future. He ended up knowing what was going to be best, and I think a little bit of it was his hand having me get stuck in that seat. So that's one story. That was my very first day on the job. And yeah, but then there's obviously the funnier days. We've been called for quite a few people who have just smoked too much weed, and they start panicking, having panic attacks, feeling like they can't breathe. Those ones are always pretty entertaining. They're actually very entertaining. The other day we had an old couple. Neither one of them could hear. And we got called there for high blood pressure, when in reality it was just because a guy wanted to go to the hospital to get away from his wife. So, like, there's some days where it's funny. It's just funny what you get called there for. And then there are more serious calls. Had quite a few overdoses and gunshots, wounds, stabbings. Those are always high adrenaline, fast-paced, and fun. Well, I don't know if fun's necessarily the right word, but they're the ones where pretty much you're really just putting all your skills to the test.
Right.
We also have a lot of cardiac arrest, so where we're performing CPR. And I can tell you one thing, there's nothing like the feeling of when you get someone, it's called ROSC, when you bring one back. Like if they had no heartbeat and weren't breathing, and all of a sudden, bam, you get the heartbeat back again. It's just a great, amazing feeling because you pretty much brought them back. So then there's also gross calls. Sadly, a lot of times, a lot of places that are calling can be you're not cleanest of homes,
Yeah.
especially where I work. But like there was one place that had bed bugs absolutely everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean it was so gross to go in there, but we were there to do our job and had to do it, and the whole time you're just thinking, man, really hope that's not a bed bug on me. And you get back to in the truck and you just feel like you're itching everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta go back and shower. Luckily, have not caught any bed bugs yet, but there's always those gross calls too. But they make for some great stories. Um, then one, probably the coolest fire I've been on was we burned down. Well, we didn't burn down, but a factory. We don't know what the originated cause. We have theories, but we don't know. This factory caught on fire, so we pulled up on scene, stretched the hand line inside, and it was a old warehouse, and you could just see flames rolling over your head like waves.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the coolest experiences ever. I started spraying it, started knocking it down, and then we had a little malfunction in the line. The gate valve got shut off on the corner, so we had to find that and turn it back on. But by that point, all the fire that we just put out reignited, and our incident commander started seeing brown smoke coming from the building. And what brown smoke indicates is that the actual structure of that building is on fire. So, like for houses, it's the wood beams, or it can be the steel beams, whatever it is. That's what brown smoke indicates is the actual structure. So it's about to possibly collapse.
Mm-hmm.
So we got pulled out, and then 5 minutes later, the whole factory collapsed, and it was just all up in flames. And as weird as it sounds, it was one of the coolest things to actually watch and see happen.
Yeah.
Luckily, no one was in there, so that was good.
Uh-huh.
And I'm trying to think of some funny calls off the top of my head. There's a lot of funny ones, but a lot of serious ones too. Those are probably two of the ones that stick out the most.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the funny ones can't really say.
Yeah, that's all right.
You're also going to have some annoying calls, though. You're going to have some of your frequent flyers that are just pretty much there to get a ride to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And you also and I mean, it all comes along with the job. There's some nights where you're going to get there for someone who's having trouble breathing. You're going to ask how long it's been going on for. And they're going to tell you it's been going on for 2 weeks now, and they just decided to call at 3 a.m. Those ones you're like, I wish you would have called a little sooner.
Uh-huh.
But it is what it is. You're there for what seems like to them their worst day, and you're there to just make it a little better.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I didn't mention before is actually 80% of firefighting service is actually medical calls. So I think that's also something that's very important to know if you're looking to go into that service, is you don't just get to sit around at the firehouse and just wait for fires.
Yeah.
As great as that would be, but you still get to help out people every day. So that part's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You always go home feeling good, especially when you help make someone's day a little better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool. It's good to hear some cool stories. I'm sure you have a ton more, but we'll push into the next question here. All right, so we're gonna move into another section here, talking about manhood and masculinity and young men today. Obviously, I think we both agree, and a lot of people that are watching this probably agree. Masculinity is kind of changing how society sees it, or what they think society should, or how a masculine man should act in society. So I kind of want to talk about how you see all this, and I guess my first question to you would be, what do you think is lacking in young men today in our society?
I think a huge thing that young men are lacking is, one, faith. And the reason I say faith is because faith can lead to a lot of good morals and also show you how to be a good person and just how to treat others. And it also plays a huge role of taking responsibility. So the other thing, or another thing, young men I feel like are lacking is responsibility. I feel like a lot of young men today tend to make more excuses than to actually problem solve or decide to whine or complain and not do anything about it. They don't do anything to try and fix that problem. Or if they were to make a mistake on the job site or just in personal life, they immediately go to making excuses instead of taking ownership. And I understand taking ownership and responsibility can suck, but and our first instinct might be to make an excuse. I mean, I get that. That's kind of everyone, because you never want really it to be all on you or all your fault.
Right.
But the difference is, are you going to just keep making excuses the entire time and keep making the same mistake and blaming other people, blaming other things, blaming your circumstances or whatever it may be? Or are you actually going to be like, okay, I see where I messed up. How am I going to solve this? How am I going to make sure it doesn't happen again? So that's what I mean by the responsibility. I also feel like young men today are lacking on discipline as well as just being masculine, I guess.
Yeah.
Seems like there's a lot more guys who are going for quote unquote pretty boys,
Mm-hmm.
and which you can dress. I mean, if you want to dress nicer, all for it and stuff, but don't shy away from the hard stuff still.
Mm-hmm.
And still take responsibility. I guess by pretty boys, I mean the ones that are no longer pretty much what I said before is taking ownership. Just kind of like nothing's ever their fault.
Mm-hmm.
They're not working for anything, and they're just looking for attention.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess the big things is responsibility, faith, discipline. I think we young men need to be disciplined also in their actions and the way they treat other people.
Yeah.
Yes. If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I agree. I think those are really big things that are lacking from masculinity today in young men is discipline. I think the responsibility one is big. You see that a lot today. People are not willing to say, you know what, I made a mistake and I'm going to take ownership for it, whether it be, I don't know, door dinging somebody in a parking lot, or and then actually owning up and telling that car owner, finding out who owns the car, or it's like you mentioned at work, you make a mistake and somebody brushes it under the rug or they blame it on their coworker, whatever it is. But yeah, young men are definitely lacking responsibility, and then the faith is huge. I mean, we'll get more into that later, but like the Lord is definitely missing from a lot of young men's lives today. So
absolutely,
like we just talk about the things that are lacking from young men. Obviously, they can apply those things to their lives, but if there was one thing right now that you think could help set young men up for success, they could start doing, whether it be creating a new habit that's good or whatever it is, what do you think young men could do right now to start setting themselves up for success?
I think right now would be a big thing would be just taking ownership and responsibility of your actions.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that be owning up to mistakes or taking responsibility for new projects that you haven't been before, or like something needs to be done at work, it's not getting done. Take that responsibility upon yourself and go do it.
Mm-hmm.
Go get it done. And by taking ownership, just take ownership of everything you do, as in the fact of also take pride in what you do. Don't just do something halfway.
Right.
If you're going to do it to the best of your ability and write it out. If you mess up on something, take ownership and figure out a way that you can do it better next time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think those are two big things that are also one and the same: ownership and responsibility. That would really help young men today. And yeah,
Yeah, no, that's good. Uh, so you and I are not perfect. Obviously, we're striving to be better every day, or at least we try to be. So I know we talked about your work-life goals in the next 5 years, but what's something right now that you're trying to improve on, or something that you are, working on? What's something that you are, yeah, you'd like to improve on right now?
Absolutely. So one thing that I am working on right now and would like to improve on is voicing my opinion more,
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could say. And by that I mean not just sometimes. Sometimes I have the tendency just to kind of go with the flow, even if I disagree with the course of action that's being taken.
Mm-hmm.
If I think something should be done a different way, a lot of times just to, I don't know if it's really to avoid conflict or what, but just instead of saying my opinion or what I think should be done, which could be a better way or whatnot, I think I sometimes just sit back and just go with the flow instead of vocalizing and being more of a leader. I think that's another thing. Young men should strive to be leaders. And it's something that I've wanted to strive for. And I think I've been better about it through my actions, my words, but I also need to work on that side of leadership where you're also leading with instructions or by presenting new ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so that's my big thing that I'm trying to improve on right now. And I think everyone could probably improve on it, but a lot of times, you know, something you get told or something wants to be done a certain way, even if it's not the most proficient way. Sometimes we have a tendency to just do it because, all right, that's what they said.
Mm-hmm.
Guess we'll just do it that way instead of being more of a leader and being like, what if we tried it this way?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a big thing. It's hard to, especially if it's your boss or something. It's hard to stand up and voice your opinion if it's conflicting with what somebody says. I mean, it's hard to go against the current in almost anything that you do, whether it's talking out about your faith, your belief, your like you just said, or something at work or whatever. I mean, that's a difficult task, but I do think that's important. Men should be leaders, and I think that's a good thing to try and improve on for sure. So. I guess another thing I want to just give you the opportunity. If you have any other advice for young men that you'd like to share, what would that be, if anything? So.
I think some good advice is to set goals and just work to achieve them.
Mm-hmm.
Make steps to achieve that goal and really go for it. Um, Also, I think some good goals for young men is to really find out what your morals are. Sit down and actually think. Because, I mean, ultimately, our morals dictate how we're going to respond to situations, how we're going to respond to everyday life,
Mm-hmm.
and what we do and don't do. Um, like, I know what my own morals are, and I know that my ultimate goal with those morals is just to be the best possible man I can be, to be a leader in people's lives, to also be someone that they can come to for help or advice, as well as even when no one's watching, to still do the right thing and yeah, just be the best man I can be.
Yeah, no, that's good. Without clear morals, we're kind of just wandering aimlessly and don't have clear direction in how we are supposed to act. So I like that. It's good. Uh, we'll jump into the next section here about faith. All right, so we've gone over your career, we've gone over masculinity and manhood. I think the most important thing we're going to talk about though is faith, and obviously you've hinted on it throughout this conversation, and it's built your morals, it's built who you are, how you've reacted to different things in your firefighting career. But I really want to dive into that. These are more broad questions because I want you to be able to answer how you see best fit and what you think might be able to help other people out there. But just starting off so everybody has a good baseline, what do you believe in?
So I am a Christian. I believe in the God,
Mhm.
Father, and then the Holy Spirit and Jesus Christ. So yeah, I'm technically a Protestant Christian.
Right.
And yeah, so
Yeah, no, it's good. It's there's obviously a lot of different strains of
yes,
Christianity. So, but yeah, Protestant Christian. The next thing I kind of want to talk about is when you made your faith your own. Because growing up, if you grow up in a Christian household like you or I did, you go to church with your parents because they tell you to. But at a certain point, you have to make the decision that you want to continue down that faith, or you leave the faith, which hopefully not, and obviously you haven't. But when did you really make your faith your own and decide to pursue Christ with who you are? So
absolutely. So I can't exactly give you an exact date on that.
yeah.
Because like you said, I did grow up in a Christian home, so I've always been around it. But all I can remember is from being a young age is always believing in Him.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I could start saying I started making it my own also in school. We would be given projects, and I don't remember. I don't remember what grade it was, but we had to write a report on some historical figure. And for me, I chose King David
Mm-hmm.
from the Bible. He was someone that I really looked up to in the Bible, just because he is someone known for being a man after God's own heart.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you know that story, you know the mistakes he made in his life. But it never took away from how much, one, God loved him, and how he was never not known as a man after God's own heart. So it was just a nicer reminder of the human side of things, where yes, we are going to make mistakes, but we can still be someone who strives to be after God's own heart. Obviously, want to be like Jesus, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we all strive for. But he was God himself also, and he was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, at least, sometimes it was nice to also look back on a human, or a man,
Mm-hmm.
and see that even with his flaws, that God still loves us. We can still be known for wanting to strive towards him.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess from a young age during school, though, I would just start basing anytime I could try and fit my belief in, or try and learn more about my beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
I would go for it. In 8th grade, which we went to the same school, I don't know if you remember the Passion Project.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, that I decided to do on proving that God was real,
Mm-hmm.
and the Bible was historical facts. And within doing that, it also really anchored my belief. It also just gave me more knowledge of stuff I didn't know.
Yeah.
Um, and that was a very cool thing to get to do and learn about. Learn about the cell that holds everything together, which I think is a cool fact still. This is the one thing out of that project that I really remember. Everything else I have a general idea about, but laminin is the organism or cell that holds everything, like all living organisms, together. And it's actually in the shape of a cross.
Hmm.
And, the Bible says that God holds everything together. And it's just funny that the Christian faith is symbolized by a cross, and that cell looks just like a cross. And then also laminin, if you say it slower, it sounds like lamb within. And obviously we know that, or I know that Jesus Christ is known as the lion and the lamb.
Mm-hmm.
So just thought that was super cool and interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess I can't really say exactly when I made it my own, but I've never doubted.
Right.
I've always believed that he was there. And I think that has a lot to do with my upbringing. From a very young age, I was going to church. Mom would constantly be playing Christian worship songs, or watching Christian cartoons,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. So that probably definitely helped.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and it also really helped guide me with my morals.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just started. I guess I started really making it my own then when I started getting older and taking it more of a personal goal to find out more and
Mm-hmm.
like to believe, because obviously there are people that grow up going to church and then end up not believing.
Yeah.
For me, that wasn't the case, so I guess I started taking it in as my own as soon as whatever that age is, that age hit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always known him and loved him and believe that he loves me. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
That's good. So obviously, faith is a growing thing. You're always working to be more like Christ-like. So how have you struggled in your faith, and how have you overcome that, or what have you struggled with? So.
absolutely. One thing that I guess I kind of struggled with was I always believed and never doubted his existence or anything like that. But I guess I kind of started to drift away a little bit. My later years in high school,
Mm-hmm.
I started to not necessarily go down a wrong path. I was still a good person, everything like that, but I was making some dumb decisions. And with making those dumb decisions, it was because I started to fall away in the sense of wasn't centering my life around Christ.
Right.
Um, Instead, I was more focused on worldly things. So that is when I kind of started to drift away. But I got myself back through friends and family who also helped bring me back and respark my love and motivation to one, go to church, and also continue to seek after God
Mm-hmm.
and find out more and more about Him. Um, Also, someone recommended the book to me. I think it was actually my mom, Case for Christ by Lee Strobel.
Mm-hmm.
And reading that book also, I thought it was absolutely fascinating. And it kind of set my focus back to the Lord instead of the worldly things that are only, here and not eternal. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I guess I struggled just when I got caught up focusing on more worldly issues and things like that.
Yeah. It's super important, obviously, to have a good community and a good Christian community around you. It's really easy to be tempted or fall as a single person, but when you have people to build you up and encourage you in your faith, it's a super powerful thing. So,
Absolutely.
um, I guess how does your faith affect you as a young man?
So I think my faith affects me greatly as a young man. When it comes to as I hinted at in the video, right?
Mm-hmm.
My morals.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my morals come from my belief in the Bible. The Bible has a great set of morals and great examples of how to be a good, righteous man. I mean, obviously, Jesus is the best example, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so just to constantly try and be a good person, to always try and do right by others, and of course, as well as do right by you, but just, I guess, to constantly try and help others, um, and just be a good, respectful human being. And the old saying, treat others as you want to be treated. Or
Mm-hmm.
also another one that's a lot more difficult that I've struggled with in the past is the Bible states as love your enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Or also for me, it's people that there hasn't been many, but there's been certain people I have hated.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, when I was reconnecting my faith, it helped me out to actually, I wasn't forgiving them. And I actually reached out to those people and forgave them. And with doing so, it actually not only helped release weight that was on my shoulders, it was just very freeing.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I probably wouldn't have done that had it not been for my faith, because I guess without the faith, why would I ever need to forgive those people? They had wronged me. You know what I mean? But like the Bible says, you gotta love everyone and then just hope that they also turn their lives around for the better and hopefully be an example for them. Then, so my morals, big thing that my faith has done. My beliefs and actions, a lot of those stem from my morals, and I get, like I said, those from the Bible. And for my actions, I try and do what's right, no matter who's around. If there's no one around, or if there is, just trying to be the best possible person and seek to be Christ-like.
Yeah, that's good. Obviously, there's influences, outside influences in your faith. The Bible talks about, again, the community that you have. And has there been anyone that's been a role model to you as a young man in your faith? So, or that's helped build you up, I guess.
Absolutely. So, two people that have been big are my mom and my dad. My mom and dad, of course, like anyone else, have their flaws. But my mom has always put her focus on God and tried to put or direct me and my sister's focus on Him as well. She has also been, I think she's done an amazing job of being a mother. And she, throughout my childhood, would, in the mornings, read a section of the Bible every day. She had a prayer book that she would write in every day. She was constantly dedicating or listening to the Bible. And I strive to do that also. And my dad, he's helped out a lot in the sense of how to be a masculine, strong, faithful man. He has had his downfalls, but in those downfalls, I've also seen how he's reverted back to Christ and how God has impacted him in his life. And just hearing the stories from him and my mom both, they were not born believers, or not born, but you get what I'm saying.
Born into a Christian home and raised in their faith.
Yeah, they found faith later on, and it was just hearing those stories was very eye-opening and really inspirational. Then I guess someone that everyone can know, Tim Tebow. I always looked up to him because growing up I played sports and stuff. And if you guys don't know, he was a football player, professional football player. He also won the NCAA championship with the Florida Gators. But he has written many books about his life and his faith. And reading those books and just seeing how he interacts with people, and also the charities that he started, the Tim Tebow Foundation, and all that stuff, it's just very cool to also see someone on a bigger platform doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
And it's also cool to read about how God has impacted him in his life.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it's cool to see big names, people that everybody can recognize, honoring the Lord in their actions. And obviously I'm not like that, and you're not a celebrity either. And it's easy to say that you'd remain focused on Christ with all that attention, but we get distracted on little things and find it hard to focus on Christ in our lives, or you get sucked into different things. But I'm sure it's difficult when you're a celebrity and everybody sees all of your little mistakes. So it's cool that he's remained focused on Christ, at least from what we can see. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Gabe, I appreciate you talking with me. It's been cool to hear your career. Obviously I enjoy talking to you about masculinity and and faith. Those are super important. I know somebody else out there who's going to watch this someday will gain something from what you've had to say. I know for a fact you'll continue to encourage people in a positive manner. And like I've said, I think you embody the mindset of a warrior in a garden, and I think that's cool. There's not many young men like that left out there today, I think, at least not that I'm running into frequently. So again, thank you for coming out. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll see more of you on the channel eventually.
Absolutely.